in today's video I'm going to show you how I made this card. I created the Lattice template in ScanNCut Canvas, and then I added different shapes into the middle, and also showed you how to make a lattice heart within the video. So if you want to know how I made this, keep watching. Hi, back in 2014 I showed you how to make some lattice shapes like this here and this one here from a basic lattice template. Now the original lattice template back in 2014 wasn't mine, and I did say that in the video. It was made by another crafter, but I just decided to take it a step further and make it into other shapes. One of my YouTube subscribers contacted me a few weeks ago and said that she just couldn't make it work, and that she'd noticed that in the comments a few other people over the years had said the same thing. Now when I made the video, I'd never had any problem using the original lattice that was made by the other person, and I know that people have used it because they've left me comments or they've sent me pictures and messages over the years. So I've decided that I'm going to recreate the video, and I'm going to make my own lattice template as seen here in the top left, all in ScanNCut Canvas. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. And these are the shapes that I have made from this lattice template of my own. The first thing I'm going to do is go up to Canvas and start a new blank page. Now, as with anything I show, there are several ways how to do this, and I'm just going to give you a brief explanation. I'm going to come to the basic shapes, and for this project I'm going to use the diamond shape, which is here in the basic shapes. So with the diamond shape selected, I'm going to come to the properties box. I'm going to make sure the maintain aspect ratio is ticked, and in this first box here I'm going to type 0.75 and hit enter, and that will make my diamond 1/4 of an inch high by just a fraction over 1/2 an inch wide, as you can see down here. Now, although we have align features within ScanNCut Canvas, we don't have distribute, so we can't select this and make duplicates of it and then select them all and get the software to line them all up equidistant for us. So as I said, there are a couple of ways to do it. I'm going to show you one quick way, but I'm not going to use that way. So with this selected, you can hit the D on your keyboard and it will automatically create you a duplicate, and it does them in a diagonal line. So if I keep hitting D on my keyboard, I'll get all those shapes aligned and spaced equally in a diagonal line. Now if I select them all and right click and group them and then hit duplicate again, it gives me another set. So I can now, if I want to, put these in place by eye, make another duplicate, move them around, and then I could select those, make them a group, hit the D on my keyboard again and make another set, and I could keep adding to them, and then I'd have to, tidy them all up. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it that way. You can play around with it, but that's just, an option for you. So I'm going to come back to the diamond, go to the properties box. I'm going to make it 0.75 and hit enter and close the properties box. Now I'm going to hit the D on my keyboard to create a duplicate, and if for any reason your keyboard doesn't do that, you can come to edit and copy and paste, or hit this icon which will create you a duplicate, or you can right click and hit duplicate, however you want. So this duplicate, I'm just going to make it red, just in the hope that you'll see it better on the screen. Now I'm going to create another duplicate of the black one. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in for a start just to show you, to try and make it easier. I'm going to overlap this red one just ever so slightly with the black one. And then I'm going to do the same here. So what I'm looking for here and here is roughly a same overlap. And that hopefully is going to give me a set distance for these two black diamonds to be equidistant apart, if that makes sense. So I'm going to move the red one for now. I'm going to select the black ones. I'm going to go to Edit and align them along the top edge so they line up. And while I've got them selected, I'm going to group them just to make it a little bit easier. Now, I'm going to hit D on my keyboard to create a duplicate. I'm going to bring the red one back in, overlap it again here, so I've got the same kind of distance as I had when I used it here, and then do the same here. Bring the black one in, move the red one away. So these should now be more or less similar distances apart. I'm going to select both sets of group and go align top, and then I know they line up. And while they're all lined up, I'm going to make them a group. Okay, so now I've got those. I'm going to duplicate those and do the same. So I'm going to put the red one back in. I'll just zoom in on this section. Overlap it slightly here, bring the black ones in and overlap it so it's a similar distance here as it is here. Move the red one out of the way, select both sets of groups and align them on the top. Now I'm going to group those all together. So I've now got a line of diamonds. I'll just put this one out of the way for now. So with these selected now, I'm going to duplicate them again. And then I'm going to bring the red one in. I'll just zoom in again on the top for you. I'm going to line this one up just so it overlaps a little bit here. Bring the red ones in. And then with the black ones this time, I'm going to overlap them again. So I just get a similar distance as I did when I was lining them up this way. Now, I'm going to remove the red one for now. So now I've got this. I'm going to select them. I'm going to right click and group them. And I'm going to duplicate them. And I'm just going to keep doing that until I've got a few rows. So now you can bring this in by eye if you want, or you can bring your red one back in. I'll zoom in. And if you position your red one so it overlaps there and set your black ones so you've got a similar distance here, then you can remove your red one. Just go back to fit to mat to make it easy to see. Select all those. What you can do is go to Edit and Align Left so that you make sure that these line up properly here. And right click and group. And then I'm just going to duplicate them and I'm going to do the same. So I'm going to bring the red one in. I'm going to bring this set up. I'm just going to zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing. Overlap the red one just so you've got a little bit of an overlap. So long as you use more or less the same overlap every time. Oh, I've just moved that. Want the black ones. As long as you use the same overlap, whether you're doing it here or here or here, you'll get more or less the same space between all your diamonds, if that makes sense. So I'm going to grab the red one, move it out of the way, just go back to fit to mat so you can see it. So now I'm creating myself this diamond lattice pattern. Again, just going to go edit and align them on the left so they line up and make them a group. So now they are 5.5 inches high by just over 8 wide. I think I'll just add another one. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to ungroup them and just choose this bottom section and make a duplicate. I'll put them back together as a group and then I'll bring this one in. So I'll bring my red one back in, bring my black ones back up, and I'll just zoom in on this section. And I just want to try and line the red one up with the black one and get my little overlap. You could put them on top. I'm just overlapping them until I can see a little bit of white space. Then I'm going to select the red one, move it out of the way, go back to the mat, select these and edit them and line them up on the left edge. So hopefully all these line up now. So now I've got more or less a square of lattice. I'm going to right click and group them. And as you can see, it's 8.31 high and 8.27 wide. So more or less a square. Just going to leave my little red one up there for now because I don't really need it. So if I now just fill this with colour, I'll fill it with black. Basically, I've just got a set of diamonds. If I cut that, I'd just end up with confetti. So first thing I'm going to do is make a duplicate and just put the duplicate off the page for now. I'm going to come back to the basic shapes and grab a square. And I'm going to drag this square out until it's bigger than my lattice. And what I'm looking for, this isn't vital, but you know, if you do want to use this as a scrapbook layout or something, or on the front of a card or whatever, I'm trying to get roughly the same amount of distance here as I've got here all the way round. And that doesn't look too bad because my square's 9.35 and my lattice was 8.31, so you know, nearly an inch bigger. I'm going to, just for the process of the video, I'm going to fill the lattice in, the square in with red, just to make it easier. The lattice is behind at the moment and I want it on top. So with this red square selected, I'm going to right click and centre back. Now I'm going to select both and edit them centrally and vertically, so horizontally and vertically. I'm going to just left click anywhere to deselect, and if I click on the lattice, you'll see when I select it, it's there. If it was still behind, you know, if you've not got colouring on yours and you don't know, you think it's on top and it isn't. If you select the lattice and you get the bounding box around the square, then you know the lattice is behind. So I'll just select them both again and just double check that I didn't move them when I selected it. So now with the lattice shapes on top of the square, I'm going to go edit, subtract. And that's now given me a lattice square, which I can resize smaller if I want to, or make it bigger. Now the only thing I would say is, when I made this diamond, the very first diamond I made here was 0.75 high. If you start shrinking this down, you're going to make these smaller, and then that is going to affect how your finished project is going to look when you come to cut it. So I'm just going to undo. Now, what I would do from here is I would just bring all your shapes onto the mat and save it as a template. So I'm just going to call it Lattice Test and save it. So that is now saved into my Canvas projects. So I'm going to go back to the Canvas workspace up here, and if I go into my projects, you'll see that it's saved. It's here. This is the one I showed at the beginning. I'm going to select a new project. I'm going to come over to the My Projects tab. So I'm on a brand new map now with no name or anything, and I'm going to select the project that I've just saved. I'm going to delete the diamond because I don't want it. I'm going to put that to one side. And now I'm going to show you how you can turn your lattice into other shapes. So I'm going to select the red one and make a duplicate. I'm going to go back to the basic shapes and I'm going to choose a heart. And I'll colour the heart blue. So hopefully you'll see it. So the heart is on top. I'm going to select both. I'm going to go to Edit Center and Edit Middle. So that just puts the heart directly in the middle of this lattice. With them both selected and the heart on top, this time I'm going to go to Edit and Weld. And that just then puts you a heart right in the middle that's all welded. And then obviously if you wanted to use, you know, this as the front of a card or a scrapbook page and you wanted to put something else on top, you've got your heart here. I could go to Edit, Offset, make this one inward and just make it ever so slightly smaller. I'll use 0.08. And then if I colour that with a pale blue, you can see that will sit inside the heart that's welded to the lattice. So that's one way of using it. I'm just going to select both and group them. And just for the video, I'm just going to make it smaller and put it out of the way. So I'm going to come back to the red original template, make another duplicate. This time I'm going to use the heart. I'll just fill it with black just to make it easier to see. I'm going to just place it on the top for now. I'm going to select both, Edit Center and Edit Middle. And then I'm just going to left click anywhere on the page to deselect. I'm going to select the black heart and I'm going to right click and send it to the back. So it's now behind the lattice. Now I'm going to select both again. This time I'm going to do Edit, Subtract. So now I've got a heart shape of lattice. But as you can see, depending on where you put it, you might not get the effect that you want. So I'm going to undo it. And I am going to just move the lattice ever so slightly and see if I get any better result. So the heart is still behind, the lattice is on top. I'm going to select both and do Edit, Subtract. And now that one this time has given me a more perfect shape. But these will just be little bits of card if you cut them like that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back to the heart and I'm using just the basic size that it comes in on for the video. Obviously you can make your heart bigger or your shape or whatever you're going to use. But just for now, I'm just using as it comes in on the basic size. If you make yours bigger, just make sure you remember what size you've made it for when you come to do, you know, other parts of the process. So this heart is exactly the same size as that now. But what I want to do, I want to make it a bit bigger. So I'm going to come to Edit and Offset. I'm going to make an outward offset and I'm going to make it 0.24 and say OK. Now the offset is on top, so I can drag that out of the way. Just leave that one there. This is my original. I'll fill this one with colour. You don't have to do this, but I just like to fill them with colour on the screen, so hopefully you can see better what I'm doing. I'm going to position this one on top, and it wants to go behind, so I'm just going to right click and bring it to the front. Position it there. Select both. I'm going to centre them again on the horizontal and the vertical. And then with them both selected and the lattice heart on top, I'm going to go edit, subtract. So that has now given me the heart-shaped lattice bits that I had, but in a frame. So that's another way of using it. Just make it smaller just to put on there. Now, another way you can do this, I'll just duplicate the lattice again. I'll make this one bigger. Bring it to the front. Select both. Centre them horizontally and vertically. Just going to make a duplicate of that. Select them both and do edit, subtract. Now this time you've got a lattice but with a hole in the middle. It's not the same as this one. Let me just bring this one in. I'll ungroup that. It's not the same as this one. This one is solid. Where the colour is, that's all solid. You can see through this one. So this would be a hole. So when you cut this out, the cutter would follow all these jaggedy edges here. And you don't want that. So let me just group these two back together. Put it out of the way. So what you want something that's going to connect all these open areas. Here's the heart that I used to punch out. I'll just move that out of the way for now. So with this heart, I'm going to go edit, offset. I'm going to make it an outward. I'm going to make it about 0.24. Say OK. The outer heart is on top. I want to send it to the back. So I'm going to right click and send to back. Then I'm just going to left click anywhere on the page to deselect and click in the middle. And I know now that this is the one I've got selected. So I'm going to select them both. Just make sure they're centered horizontally and vertically, because sometimes when you click on it, it moves it ever so slightly. And then if you just do the next process, which is going to be edit, subtract to make a frame, you might wonder why it's a bit, not centered. So if I fill this in, I'll just fill it with black, you'll see I've got a frame. So I'm going to bring this one back in and I'm going to position this one over the top, select both, line them up centrally and vertically, and I'm going to go edit and weld. Okay, now it's telling me, because I used the same heart and I did an offset, I think it's because I've got these open lines. So let's center it again, edit center, edit middle. And what I might do is I might make the heart ever so slightly smaller. Select them both, edit center, edit middle, and then try weld. So I've still got them both selected. I'm going to go to edit and weld. And this time it's welded. So I think the reason it did that was because, as I say, I used the first heart to make the frame was exactly the same size as the heart I cut out. And then I added 1/4 of an inch frame, 1/4 of an inch offset and made a frame. And because I then positioned that back on top, the hole that was in the lattice and the middle bit of the heart were the same size. So I've just shrunk the whole heart frame in just a smidgen and then it's welded. So now I've got that. So this, the cutter would follow all the way around the outside. It would cut all these white sections out and it would cut this white section in the middle. But I've got a nice clean edge holding it all together. So I'll just shrink that down for now. So let's ungroup this. In fact, I'll just make it more or less the same size in the hope that you can see it better. I'll ungroup this. So from the original diamonds that I aligned up, I then made a frame. I'll bring that to the front for now. And that's one lattice shape in itself. And then from this, I then was able to create this with a hole in the middle, this with a solid heart in the middle, and this a heart shape in the shape of a lattice. I'm going to delete this and delete this because these are my new shapes. Just make sure they're all on the map. I'm going to give this a name. I'm going to call this Lattice Shapes and I'm going to save it. So now when I go back to the Canvas workspace and I go into my projects, I've got the lattice test that I made at the beginning of the video, and then I've got the lattice shapes that are made from this. And these were the ones I showed you right at the start of the video, which were my templates. Now, obviously, this will work with any shape. If you don't want diamonds as your basic lattice, use a square or a circle or even hearts, but you're going to have to play around with it. But once you know how to make the basic lattice template and then save that, you can then use anything you want to put in the middle or, you know, cut it out from. Okay, just to save some time, I've put a piece of card onto this mat. I've cut a piece of white card that is 11.5 by 5 3/4, and I've scored that and folded it in half. And I've got a piece of plain white scrap paper. I'm going to come into the patterns, into the Wi-Fi transfer and retrieve my lattice design that I've just made. I'm just going to save it into the machine for now because there are other elements on there that I don't want at the moment. So now I'm going to select this heart and go into the top left editing icon and put that in the rubbish bin. And I'm just going to drag this banner down here and put my piece of white scrap card on, and this is my lattice design here that I'm going to cut from this card. So I'm going to say OK and I'm going to do a background scan. So I'm just going to move the lattice so it's more on here, and I'm going to put my little banner shape that I made in Canvas on there, and I'm going to add a test cut. And I'm going to say OK and cut, and it should cut the test cut first. I just want to make sure it cuts through cleanly. With doing a lot of lattice, I don't want to be fighting to get my, you know, lattice off the card. So I'm going to say quick cutting. I'm going to go back, delete the test cut. Say OK and cut and set this off. Okay, so that's finished cutting now, so I'm going to unload this mat. Just poke out these. Okay, so that's the lattice. That's my banner, so I'll sort that mat out in a bit. So I'm going to stick that on there and I'm going to stamp a greeting on here. Now, my greeting is from a Stampin' Up set. So I'm just using the grid on this mat to line this up, and my stamp is actually, I'm going to stamp happy birthday, but it's in 2 words. So I want to just roughly see how much space I've got. And I think that looks okay without getting my head in the camera. So I'm going to line that up on my block and just press it down, and I'm using an old Stampin' Up colour. I'm not sure if this is still current or not because I'm not a Stampin' Up demonstrator anymore, but it's called Blackberry Bliss, and that seems to have stamped okay. So I'm just going to re-stamp it and hopefully get it positioned on here. I'm going to peel that away. Yay! Okay, so I'll put this out of the way because I'll really get my fingers stuck in it. And I'll just, that's probably dry, but I'll just give it a second or two. So I think I'll stick this on flat, and then I think I might pop this one up going across. So I might give this a little bit of a bend. Maybe something like that. Yeah, so I think I'll stick this one flat, use some wet glue. Bring my card in and position this, and because I'm using a wet glue I've got a little bit more wiggle room, hopefully. Just turn it over. And then I think I'll stick this on across there. So I'm going to put a foam pad here. And a foam pad near the end. So that's how that's looking. So I might just leave it there for now, or I might add some more flowers on it, I'm not sure yet. So don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you don't already do so, and don't forget you can also now follow me on Patreon and Instagram.